Okay, everybody, this is Sheets, and during All-Star break weekend, I'm going to be focusing on, from a DFS perspective at least, on as usual, the MMA and NASCAR slates. And as opposed to last week, where I really disliked the MMA slate, this week I liked it a lot. I think there are ways you can go to be obvious. There's ways you can go to be somewhat different, and there's enough fights on the card where you can, you know, maybe, be one of just a couple of people to hit the optimal in the bigger contests. I should say in the bigger number of entries contests. So I want to go through these, and the way I want to do them is in this way. So the 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 key fight for me is going to be this Peter Yan and Sterling fight. So there are three fights this week that are title fights that are 5 rounders. And so all three of those fights are going to be garnering quite a bit of attention, right? That's going to be the Adesanya fight, the Nunez fight, and this Jan Sterling fight. And I actually, if I had to prioritize them, I would make sure to get this Jan Sterling fight before the Nunez and Adesanya fight, and this is why. Um, well, we're going to get to this fight in a second, but the Adesanya fight, I think that I'm just going to tell you right now that I'm going to get one lineup probably with Blachowicz. I mean, he's really cheap, and his only path to victory is probably a knockout. Adesanya is moving up in weight class, so Blachowicz is very dangerous. So I'm probably going to get a little bit of him. He's probably not going to win, but I am going to grab that. Adesanya himself, as a popular over 9K main event guy, is probably someone I'm not going to have that much of. Just because he's just not the type to really just pour on a lot of points. I doubt he finishes him early, and there's just other ways to get that upside this week. So I don't know if I'm going to be pounding on this fight like I normally do the main event, because first of all, there's 3 minutes. And the other one, Nunez, she is incredibly obvious. In other words, she's probably a lock, right? She's like a 10-1 favorite. She also has great name recognition, which is going to increase her ownership a little bit, or quite a bit. So she's definitely the most likely fighter to score the most amount of points. But I just feel as though if you play her, then you have to make the rest of your lineup different. I mean, she's going to be such a high owned piece, because the reason why she's going to be high owned also is, believe it or not, you can get her in. I don't want to say relatively easily, but easily enough, because there are some kind of I don't want to say obvious, but there are some underdogs that are very playable. So if you want to play Nunez, you can get that done without a lot of stress, which means that she's going to be pretty popular. She's probably, again, if I had to say, I think she's probably going to score the most points on the slate more often than anybody else. But this is all about construction. But the Jan Sterling fight also rates to go 5 rounds. It's scheduled to go 5 rounds, and the thing is that these guys, they both throw up a lot of volume, and even if this fight doesn't finish early, this fight could garner a lot of significant strikes over a 3, 4, even 5 round period, such that I really think that this is the fight that you really need to get. Okay. I don't have too much of an opinion on which way to go. I guess Jan a little bit better, but Sterling's cheaper. So either one, but this is the fight I'm probably going to lock in. And then if I play Nunez, it's going to be with lower owned fighters, and if I play Adesanya, certainly would be with lower owned fighters. And there's just no variation where I'm playing Nunez and Adesanya in the same lineup, even if I could afford to do it. The other key piece, which I really want to get in there, is I don't want to butcher the pronunciation, is Makhachev. you know, he is going to, you know, he's almost a lock to win. I mean, as far as I'm concerned. And from a scoring perspective, he's going to be taking the guy down, getting a lot of top control, which is a new kind of metric on DraftKings. So I actually, given that Makachovic, however you pronounce it, is going to be much lower owned than Nunez, I feel as though I'm going to make this fighter, for lack of butchering the pronunciation again, another key piece, right? So again, I'm not saying that Adesanya is a bad play. I'm not saying that Nunez is a bad play. I think Nunez is almost a lock, and I think that Adesanya is, you know, very, very strong play. But in the context of this slate, I feel as though those two, like Makachev and then Jan Sterling, that fight is the key thing to kind of just center your builds around. You might see some content not recommending, but just a punt play, maybe Dober. I mean, he does certainly have a couple of knockout, you know, shots in him. And if you do, you know, play a billion lineups, you could play a little bit of him. But I feel as though I think Makhachev might be somewhat safe. So what I'm probably going to do is I will play maybe one lineup with Dober out of 20. So maybe 5%. I think that's fair, considering how much I'm going to have of him elsewhere. I think the only way that he loses and does not score well is if Dober just catches him. So I'm kind of getting leverage against myself in that way. If that makes any sense. So let's talk about a couple of the other fights. So I'm not going to go through every fight. I'm just going to highlight the ones that I think are where I'm going to get my, you know, the rest of my player pool out of. A couple of things to kind of, so let's, you know what I want to do? Let's do it this way. Let's do it by the underdogs, okay? Because these are guys you're going to need to get somebody in here. Brady, by the way, is a favorite. I'm probably not going to get that much of, so forget about that one for a second. So this Rakic Santos fight, okay? This is somewhat interesting. Rakic, this is actually could be a fight to key, because Rakic has certainly a good you know finishing upside, and Santos also is a pretty good puncher. So this is a fight that I don't have much of a lean on either side, but it's definitely a fight that you want to include in your player pool. Now this one, Yadong Phillips. Phillips is a very, very popular underdog, and probably for good reason. I mean, he's just kind of underpriced a little bit, and he throws a lot of volume. And this is usually a really, really good recipe for, you know, for success in DFS. Now, what you might want to do then, if you want to get some leverage, is you can play Yadong, right, to get leverage off of that Phillips play, right? So on the one hand, you can play Phillips in your lineups as a dog if you need it, but if you want to get different in a couple of your lineups, Yadong is very live to get a finish, so that could get good leverage off of the Phillips people. Okay, if that makes any sense. Askarov, Benavidez, no interest. I went back and forth, but then I opted for nothing in there. Kenny Cruz, even though it's the 8,100 fight, I'm not getting too much of that. So that's I guess in one way a way to be different, because usually a lot of people play that 8,100 fight. This fight is to me is really interesting. This Medic against Cruz. So Medic is coming from the Alaska Fight Tour. Now I don't pretend to know about the Alaska Fight Tour, but I will say this, that if he's 8,900 coming off the Alaska Fight Tour, I mean, I'll take my chance that there's at least a decent amount of volatility in this. So I think that this is another one where you can play both sides, but I think Cruz is going to be a live underdog, and he might end up being popular as well. But he's certainly somebody that that you want to get a piece of. So that's another one. Jones Bautista. Not much. I originally liked Batista a little bit, but again, I just have better 9,100 guys to pay for. Espinoza, is one of two fighters that's actually pretty good on FanDuel because FanDuel rewards takedown defense, and so Espinosa is pretty good at that. As is, I'll throw another FanDuel play. Where is he? Cara France. Cara France is really good at stuffing takedowns, and Bontarin's going to be going for a lot of them. So Bontarin is another one who is going to be a somewhat gettable underdog for the reasons I just mentioned, sort of. So Cara France is going to be is good at takedown defense, but Bontarin is certainly going to be going for them. So if Bontarin gets in there at 7,700, you're going to kind of want a piece. One other, which is somewhat interesting, is it's more of a fade than anything else. I thought the price was going to be a little better. Benavidez, I don't know what's wrong with my pronunciation today, is okay. But again, I prefer Benavidez if he were, let's say, 7,500 or something like that. He's not really a big underdog. So usually what I like to do with these 8K fights is find ones that rate to finish in the distance. But that just isn't the case. The 8K fights are not that exciting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on these 75, 7,600 guys that I mentioned. Like Santos could be a live dog, Phillips could be a live dog, Cruz can be a live dog, right? Those are going to be like my core underdogs that kind of flip-flop around. And then with respect to favorites, as I mentioned before, Makovej going to be a big piece. Jan Sterling, I'll get a little bit both of those guys, okay? And then again, with respect to Lemos, by the way, Lemos is also a decent favorite. And with respect to the other main events like Adesanya and Nunez, yeah, I'll play Nunez, but again, I got to make sure that you want to make sure that you play Nunez with the low own. So you don't want to play, for example, Nunez with the Peter Yan fight, which is going to be somewhat chalky, with all those chalky underdogs I've kind of mentioned, right? You're just, not that it's a bad lineup, but you're just rating to split it with too many people, because I think a lot of people are going to go that route. What a lot of people I think will end up doing, as I just mentioned, let's just throw this in here. Let's throw, first, let's see if you could play them all together. So let's say you want to play Nunez and Adesanya just for the hell of it. Okay. Like if you want to play Nunez Adesanya, you could get away with this, even because what you could do is you could even play that Sterling fight, just make sure to take the underdog. And then, I mean, really easily, we already talked about these sub 8K guys you could play. So Phillips, who's the other guy I mentioned? Santos. And even if you do that, you don't even have to play a fourth underdog even, right? So the reason why I mention all this is that you want to play Tim Elliott. I mean, it's fine. And the reason why I mention this is it's just going to be a testament to how popular Nunez is going to be, because you could play Nunez and Adesanya together, for example, and then play very reasonable plays elsewhere. So not to say this lineup, as I said, is bad, but I think that what I'm probably going to do, like I said, is pivot just a little bit and not play them both, you know? And that's why, what's his name? Now I forget the pronunciation. Is Makachev is going to be a big part, okay? Because I think that he can score as well as Nunez, can be much less popular. And no, I'm not going to play Anderson. I think that getting the leverage off of Nunez is just as simple as playing Makachev. Whereas if you want to fade Adesanya, I mean, you could play Blakovic. That is a very live underdog. So, and that's another one, for example. So I think a lot of people are going to do this. So I think there are people are going to play this. They're going to play Blakovic, and then they're going to go play Nunez, for example, and then they could get like almost whatever they want, you know. So once again, all this is a way of saying that Nunez is a tremendous play, but she's going to be in almost every lineup. So if you could somehow find a way to pivot off her, and I think this Makachev is a way to do it. Or, like I said, one more thing, and then we'll call this, is you could play this Medic, right? Without, as I said, there's a certain amount of variance, but there could be upside variance too. Like Medic could be good. So you can play Makachev, not play Nunez. Then we could, pay up a little bit more for Jan. And you can do this, like for example. And this is Elliott. He's not my favorite play, but at least just to show you that you can get 8,200. You can make all this work. Okay, that's really all I have. I might end up being in the Discord a little bit, but that's my MMA breakdown and analysis for this weekend.